Hi, I'm Tony Constantine, an investment advisor representative with Lifemark Securities Corp. Just as a reminder, the views that I share with you here are mine and do not necessarily reflect the views of Lifemark Securities Corp. That being out of the way now, as I write this, the national debt clock has us at 36 trillion $495 billion in debt. That's about $270,000 per household in the United States. We owe a lot of money. That's a whole pile of money. And we're concerned right now because we've got DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, running from department to department, auditing, finding out where the money's going. The big question is, where's the money being spent? Well, in part, we know that the interest on the national debt is larger than our defense budget. That's a problem. Okay, but where's the rest of the money going, and what's it being spent on? Well, if you turn on the news, I've seen Congress people complaining about war in the streets and constitutional crisis and this and that as they attempt to get the courts and them to usurp the authority of the President of the United States. And they're calling constitutional crisis, which is kind of ridiculous because Article 2, if they care to read it, tells you what the authorities are of the President of the United States, and they should not be attempting to usurp them. But that's a whole nother discussion. Anyway, just as a reminder that national debt is what the government owes. It does not include your and my mortgages, our auto payments. None of that counts. It's only what the federal government owes. Okay? Now, I heard one reporter that was lamenting the fact that since DOGE found some what they called fraud and abuse in the USAID and closed the department down, she was complaining that the little children weren't getting, they were going to starve, that they're not getting food or humanitarian aid. Well, I think the better question was, well, if U.S. aid, instead of giving aid, is giving $2 million worth of condoms to Gaza, what kind of aid is that? Perhaps she should have been asking, and I wonder why she didn't ask, or what she thinks children in Gaza eat, or anywhere else for that matter. How many condoms do they eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And if they don't eat condoms for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, those kids were going to starve anyway. So what's the big thing with why give money for condoms to Gaza? I don't get it. And our Congress people want to cause a constitutional crisis over that? Really? Seriously? Huh. Well, and then you know I've heard people complaining about, well, how come the price of eggs is still so high? Trump was going to lower it on day one. Well, that's what he's got DOGE working for. So he wants to find out where the waste is so he can cut it and start spending or paying down the national debt. Because going back to one of my earlier posts, we talked about the causes of inflation. Debt causes inflation because when you borrow money, you spend it. So you borrow $100,000 to buy a house. Okay, so you send it to the bank, or whoever sold the house, and that's up to them and their bank. But you spend that money. So that means $100,000 is now increased the money supply, not the debt supply, the money supply. Okay, and when you increase the money supply, that's always inflationary, always. And like I said, we've talked about this before. It doesn't matter whether you keep the money. As a matter of fact, when you sell it, it helps increase inflation even more. But what we have to remember is that when you increase the money supply, you have more dollars looking for the same level of goods and services. Okay? And then also we have to consider another fact. There's some bird flu going around out there, and I don't know if can't remember if it was last year or the year before. The Biden administration authored the destruction or the death, the murder of over 100 million chickens. It's a lot of chickens. Okay, where do we get eggs from? Well, chickens. And so the farmers, the chicken ranchers, or farmers, whatever you want to call them, have two questions now. We've got some chickens left. So of the eggs that are, that are laid, how many do we grow to sell for next year for people's dinners? And how many do we keep and sell for breakfast for this year? It's a tough question. I'm glad I'm not a farmer. I know just growing garlic, I have a difficult time each year after the harvest figuring out how many I'm going to keep for sowing for next year's crop of garlic and how many I'm going to keep to eat. I'm Italian, I like garlic, I'm sorry. Anyway, we as citizens need to pay attention to what's going on in the world, what conversations are going on, what's being said in those conversations, who's saying it, and what's their motivation. Okay? Because I think the journalism has taken a deep dumpster dive lately. And what we get as journalism isn't really journalism, it's some kind of propaganda. But that's a whole different, again, that's a whole different thing. I'm here to talk about the economics. My thing is that the economics indicate that we're going to have a while before we cut down on the price of eggs. And it's not Trump's fault. I'm not even going to blame the ex-President Biden. He did what he thought was best for the country with ordering those chickens killed. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it is at this point an accomplished fact, so we have to learn to live with it. And it's going to be a while before egg prices come down. Because of the scarcity of the chickens and eggs, rather than an economic problem. Anyway, we have to be careful what we say and how we say it, because we want to make sure that we're accurate when we talk, don't we? We don't want to be left out on a limb somewhere and, just because of our own mistake. I'm not going to call it ignorance or stupidity because I may be dumb at times, but not always. And if the government closes down an agency, it's probably for a valid reason. At least listen to it and give it some consideration. Because these people have to make some big decisions, tough decisions, and it's not going to help if we let ignorance get in the way. So try to keep our questions relevant and worthy of being answered when we ask them. So, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, my contact information will be on screen in a moment. Other than that, make sure you come back next week for our next exciting adventure in investing. And between now and then, make every day a great day.